What's becoming apparent is that not only do the pro-Palestinian activists want to be able to chant out whatever they like in terms of hate, but they also want to be able to shut down any alternative view, particularly voices prepared to speak up in Israel's defence. Take, for instance, a Zoom event organised by the Australian Jewish Association over the weekend with former Deputy Prime Minister and Credlin regular John Anderson that was hijacked by pro-Palestinian activists.
Religion and our beliefs and
Can you shut the up? Can you shut your mouth, you old? Stop yapping, brother.
This one has to go.
What do you mean? So someone joined there claiming he was Tony Abbott. Clearly he was not. Put aside the disgusting language, but the gutlessness of the protester to not even show his face, I think tells us everything we need to know. Joining me, the organiser of that online event, President of the Australian Jewish Association, David Adler. Well, I'm sorry to say, David, you know, we can't even have a rational civil debate in this country. We've got these protests at the university, the encampments are going on. But even in the online environment, they do not want to hear an alternative view. And this is a very reasonable, intellectual, considered former Deputy Prime Minister shut down like he was in your event.
Peter, that's absolutely right. And it was not primarily about Israel. John Anderson has a lot to commend him, but he's not an expert Middle East analyst. We had him there to talk about the subject of Western civilisation broadly, the values and challenges that are currently being faced. And although the protesters, the infiltrators, were wearing a mask, the mask has been lifted off the story that this is just anti-Israel activity about what's happening in Gaza. They attacked an ordinary Jewish community event, a significant event. They doxed some people who were attending with screenshots, videos, names, etc. They're cowards. Their effectiveness is almost zero. The other points that need to be made are, firstly, that this is a symptom of a failure to act to deal with the radicalisation and extremism on our university campuses. We've discussed this before, the failure of the Minister Jason Clare, and specifically the failure of the Vice-Chancellor at the University of Sydney, Mark Scott. But there's something really different about this event too, and that is we have traced the perpetrators. We have evidence.
Oh, well, tell us more, David.
We have evidence of who the organisers are. We have identification details. We've given it to detectives in the New South Wales Police just this afternoon. And we've also had legal advice that there is a section of the Criminal Code Act, it's actually number 474.17, which creates an offence to use a carriage to intimidate, harass, menace. And you would think that this is a slam dunk. So it's now a test of our law enforcement. There are adequate laws to deal with this. We have provided the evidence of who's involved, and we now are asking the police and the university to take appropriate action against people who are doing this.
This is the Telecommunications Act. It's administered by the federal government and only the federal government, David. I worked in that portfolio, so I understand it well. And of course, this is where questions should go to Michelle Rowland in the Parliament all week about this. I think it is that significant. Well done on doing that background work. One thing I would add, though, in the UK, the government there is cancelling the visas of pro-Hamas student activists. If they're not Brits, if they can kick them out of the country, they are. Why aren't we doing the same?
We absolutely should. I mean, as everyone knows, Hamas is a prescribed terrorist organisation, and there are laws also against supporting prescribed terrorist organisations. And we have people openly declaring their support for Hamas on university campuses. And rather than expel those, the Labor government seems intent to bring more in. And as we've discussed before, over 2,200 visas have been issued very rapidly to bring people from Gaza. And we know from studies that a majority, something of the order of 75% of people in Gaza support Hamas. So rather than apply common sense, we are doing the inversion of common sense in this country. It's a huge issue, and it inevitably will bite not just the Jewish community, but Australians generally.
I need a quick comment, if I can, on Labor Senator Fatima Payman. We finished the last budget sitting period with her under fire for repeating a phrase that the Prime Minister said should not be used by any official, or certainly any Australian even. She did, though, and the photographs now have turned up too of her last week standing next to Islamic Council Victoria President Adel Salman, who's previously described October 7 as, quote, a legitimate act of resistance. This is the atrocities, and that Hamas attacks were for the Palestinians to rise up. Well, unless the Prime Minister actually shows the Senator there are consequences for her actions, this looks very much like he's tacitly endorsing what she's doing, doesn't it?
Look, whatever your view of the politics overseas, there is no way a rational, reasonable person can describe what happened on October 7 as resistance. There was slaughter of innocent people, elderly people, rape of women, murder of children. That's not resistance. That is barbaric terrorism. It needs to be condemned by everyone. And if we have people in our national parliament who are not prepared to condemn it, they are not fit for office. And the Prime Minister needs to properly discipline, seriously discipline anyone who holds such views. And perhaps she was in that photo because she shares the views of the President of the Islamic Council of Victoria, which is known as a fairly radical organisation.
Well, if she doesn't, David, she should disavow herself of his views, and the Prime
100%.
Minister should take her off the Foreign Affairs Committee. There's no doubt about that. David Adler, thank you for your time.